Hello everyone, my name is Igor Tomych and today we are at Merchant Payment Ecosystem conducting interviews, and there is no need to introduce David Birch, who's well known in fintech area. So today I think we're looking to have your wisdom and exposure about the stablecoins, because the topic becomes really hot, and I think right now it's really hard to say where the stablecoins for the merchants are becoming the practice and where it's still the proof of concept. What do you think about that?
Well, I think two things really. I think first of all, it's actually still quite early days for stablecoins. So if you look at the amount of stablecoin activity, if you exclude crypto trading, the amount of stablecoin activity in what you might think of as the real economy, it's still limited. And it's all in dollars, which is, from a European perspective, and in fact from lots of other perspectives, possibly not absolutely ideal. So the question is, what does it mean? Like, where is it going? And when I talk this afternoon, I'll be saying a couple of different things. So first of all, I'll be saying stablecoins are important because they lay down the rails. I personally, I believe this kind of story about the next generation of financial market infrastructure being tokenized.
Yeah.
So digital assets. So stablecoins are laying down the rails for digital assets. And I think in the long run, the digital assets are probably more important than the stable coins. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, in countries like the UK, for example, we don't yet really know what we want to do about stable coins. Like, we don't really have a consistent view of this. And I think that is problematic, because if people are going to invest, they need to see some kind of strategy. It's holding us back at the moment, I think, is that. And the third thing is, I don't think the stable coins we have now, tokenized US dollars, are necessarily the coins of the future. So you're beginning to see people talking about, in fact, one of the things I mentioned in my book before, actually, tokenized money market funds. Slices of money market funds are a very good form of money, but also, when we were in the Middle East, people were talking about tokenized real estate, digital gold, digital oil, all sorts of other things. So stable coins are laying down rails, first thing. The rails they're laying down are for this digital asset economy, which I think is true. And the third thing is, what kinds of digital assets will serve as money? Right now we just assume it's going to be dollars, but I don't know. That's not as obvious to me.
Actually, it reminds the beginning of the internet, because there were a lot of different protocols, like a Gopher, which existed before www. And actually it's dead because it didn't have all the required parameters and needs for the customers. So I think we're kind of living in a similar situation when we just adopting the technology, but we don't know the final frame of the product that we're going to use.
Like the early adopters were very happy to use, Gopher and file transfer protocol and all this kind of thing. But you needed the web to make it into the mass market. Maybe Visa and MasterCard are the web on top, or I don't know, maybe it's brands, Facebook, Google. Maybe it's brands that we don't know of yet. Maybe it's media. But yes, you're right, we haven't quite seen that in the mass market yet. But don't you agree, if you look downstream where those rails are taking us, that kind of next generation economy based on digital assets actually looks pretty interesting.
And another shift that I personally see is shift of the accountability, because the bank is no longer custodian for holding your money. Basically, you have a choice to provide the custodian functionality to the third party, or be your own bank to hold the funds, because that's the nature of the tokens. So it's another really important aspect, I think.
No sane person wants to be their own bank.
That's true, but that's possible.
But yes, you're right. There should be good competition for custody services.
Yeah, that might be one of the case. And another question, I think here today, what we would like to understand, what is the payment acceptance sovereignty? Because what actually it means for the merchant operator? Because it seems that we live in a world where everything is connected with everything. So what is your view here?
I think, it's a difficult topic to talk about, because a year ago at this conference, people wouldn't have talked about sovereignty in the same way. But because of sort of global geopolitical issues, people are starting to question the overall resilience of the European payment infrastructure. Not just because there's this thing, for example, like the European Commission have always been unhappy that what they see as proprietary, they mean American, what they see as American infrastructure powers European payments. That is an issue. But there's also the issue, people now are more concerned about cyber attacks, actual attacks, sabotage, activities of foreign powers, organized crime at a large scale. And then, you've got natural disasters because of climate change, you've got hurricanes and fires and things like this. So I think the idea that we need to have a more active strategy towards European or resilient European payment infrastructure, I think that has gone up the agenda. I think there is more energy around that.
That makes a lot of sense. The world is dynamic, and right now sovereignty doesn't exist, but everyone is trying to get it. And the last one, in a agentic commerce world, who ends up owning the trust and the accountability? Because that's a question that is tickling the mind a lot. Like, if my agent is buying, who is accountable for that?
So the issue of accountability is wrapped up with this issue of identity, irrevocable. So in other words, your bot comes to my airline to buy a ticket. So first of all, how do I know that it's your bot? How do I know it isn't a North Korean fake version of your bot? How do I know it hasn't been tampered with or altered in some way? How do I know that, Dave Birch gave it authority, and what did he give it authority for? How do I know that it's allowed to take the specific actions that it's taking? These kind of things are unresolved at the moment. So we have some protocols in place for the communication. I can bring you an intent mandate, for example, but who signed it, and how do I verify that signature? That stuff we haven't quite got yet. And actually, I think this is where banks have a pretty significant role to play. So even if banks aren't doing the payments anymore, because we're all using X402 and stablecoins, even if banks aren't doing the payments, the identity infrastructure seems to me something that is a natural bank business. It's the bank that knows that this is really Dave Birch, so on. So I'm not negative about that at all. I think if banks kind of reshape their thinking around that, they would see this as an amazing opportunity.
And definitely being the ecosystem for fintech world is something that the banks actually can do, and they need to put more energy into getting into this place.
Well, I think so, but we'll wait and see.